The scene opens at the Heavenly Demon's divine cult, where the Heavenly Demon sits in quiet contemplation. A man bursts in, expressing his frustration that despite having the 9 major sects of both orthodox and unorthodox factions under their control, the Heavenly Demon remains inactive. The Heavenly Demon explains that his inaction is not by choice. He reveals that while practicing his divine arts, he became mysteriously separated from his physical form and has been unable to return to it. Suddenly, a black portal materializes and begins to draw the Heavenly Demon into its depths. The scene shifts. Someone declares that anyone could provide better support, while another voice dismisses a powerless individual as a burden. A third voice draws a harsh comparison to a 90-year-old E-rank awakened, and finally a desperate cry rings out, "Hyun-soo!" Park Hyun-soo awakens with a start, gasping for air. As he stares at his bed, he expresses his weariness of these recurring dreams. The narrative then transitions to a flashback, set 2 years ago in 2020. It recounts how portals to an alternate world suddenly appeared globally, releasing monsters that wreaked havoc across the planet. Conventional weapons proved ineffective against these creatures. However, certain individuals began awakening special abilities. Among them, S-rank hunters emerged with formidable powers that could effectively combat the monsters. These S-rank hunters grew so influential that they rivaled nations in power. The story then reveals that Park Hyun-soo belongs to the unfortunate 1% of the population classified as powerless, serving as a mere supporter in this new world order.
A message arrives informing Park Hyun-soo that the hospital is running low on rooms, and if he fails to make the payment by month's end, they would have no choice but to discharge Hyuntae. As Hyun-soo contemplates ending it all and prepares to say his final goodbyes, a portal suddenly materializes in the air. An elderly man emerges, crashing into the room. Still stunned, Hyun-soo asks the man's identity. The old man, shocked, questions if Hyun-soo can actually see him. Hyun-soo quickly assures him that he's broke and has nothing worth stealing. The elderly man, clearly disoriented, asks where he is. When Hyun-soo inquires if he's a hunter, given his emergence from the portal, the old man responds with confusion, asking if that's some kind of food. The elderly man attempts to touch the TV, but his hand passes through it. Hyun-soo, now spooked, wonders if he's encountering the Grim Reaper. However, the old man disproves this theory by flicking Hyun-soo's forehead, realizing with surprise that he can physically interact with the boy. He then abruptly decides to leave. As the elderly man explores this new world, he marvels at the unfamiliar sights. Vehicles moving faster than horses carrying humans, and buildings unlike anything he's ever seen. When he tries to interact with a passerby, he phases right through them, leading him to realize that Hyun-soo is the only person he can physically touch. Suddenly, he feels himself being pulled back to Hyun-soo's location. Meanwhile, Hyun-soo has just finished covering the portal holes. He debates whether to report this incident when his phone rings. Someone on the other end requests his assistance, and he agrees to help immediately. The old man reappears, calling him crazy for apparently talking to himself. When Hyun-soo questions his return, the elderly man explains that he's not here by choice. Whenever he tries to leave, he's dragged back. Upon learning that Hyun-soo is heading to support people at a portal, the old man expresses confusion about hunters and portals. Though surprised by the man's lack of knowledge, Hyun-soo dismisses it and threatens to call the police if he doesn't leave. However, the old man grabs him and declares that at Hyun-soo's current speed, the sun would set before he reaches his destination. With that, he announces, Heavenly Demon Flight.
3 hours later.
Hei finally arrived at the portal. Our bro Hyun-soo was checking his equipment when he unexpectedly encountered Chu Jong-sung again. This man was a bully notorious for randomly picking on people and beating them up. Hyun-soo had once spent an entire month recovering because of one of Jong-sung's reckless actions. When Jong-sung asked who had called him, Hyun-soo replied that it was Hunter Kim Hak-sung. Without hesitation, Jong-sung punched Hyun-soo in the stomach and warned him not to make any mistakes today, adding sarcastically that he should try his best. At that moment, Gramps, also known as the Heavenly Demon, stepped in. He struck Hyun-soo and called him pathetic before they began entering the portal. As they crossed through, the heavenly demon mentioned that he felt the same sensation as when he had been pulled into this world. Hansu observed that the land appeared completely dry and wondered aloud what the purpose of the portal might be. The leader then instructed a nearby woman to determine the concept of the portal using some kind of tool. The heavenly demon told Hansu to stand at the front and explore the area, but Hansu refused. In response, the heavenly demon remarked that Hansu wouldn't get far by himself, since he was essentially carrying nothing more than an ant could manage. Hansu found himself unable to refute the claim.
Gramps then noted that the land wasn't entirely dry. He sensed that the water veins beneath the surface seemed to be fluctuating. Hyunsu wondered if Gramps was some sort of fortune teller. Just then, the woman announced that the concept of the portal was water, leaving everyone confused. Even the bully Jung-sung questioned whether that made sense. Suddenly, water erupted from the ground all around them, and a swarm of fish-like monsters known as mermen appeared, causing chaos. As the mermen wreaked havoc, Hyunsu attempted to draw his spear but was struck and knocked back, losing his weapon in the process. Bleeding and now lying on the ground,
Hyunsu saw a vicious merman approaching him, ready to attack. At the last second, the merman's head exploded. It was then that Gramps calmly stated that his powers seemed to be effective against these monsters. Suddenly a merman attacked the old man, but he dodged with ease. Then the heavenly demon charged up an attack and told the merman that he was 1,000 years too early to land a scratch on him, before splitting him in half, ending his life. Another merman tried to attack to avenge its fallen comrade, but the heavenly demon charged up another attack and uttered the words, "Chaos Demon Flash," which destroyed all enemies within 50 yards ahead. A beam of light emerged, taking out the mermen. Everyone was confused and wondering who had created that blast. Suddenly the boss of the mermen appeared. The heavenly demon told the boss to be honored by dying at his hands. As the merman charged, the heavenly demon phased through him. He then stated that since his origin ki had dissipated, they could no longer touch him. Confused as to why they couldn't touch the heavenly demon anymore, the merman began to target Hyunsu. Hyunsu barely blocked the attack but was thrown into a rock. The heavenly demon warned him that he would die if he didn't do anything. He then instructed Hyunsu to observe the merman's body, noting that it had strong muscles and thin legs, but its jutting bones were weak. The heavenly demon pushed Hyunsu into battle, telling him to aim for the weak spots. Scared for his life, Hyunsu decided to fight back and focused, delivering a punch and an elbow strike straight to the merman's chest. The merman fell to the ground, motionless. Hyunsu was shocked that he had just taken down a merman with his bare hands. However, the heavenly demon told him there was no time to stand dazed and that he needed to finish the merman. Hyunsu hesitated to kill the creature, but the heavenly demon assured him that if he didn't, it would kill him when it woke up. Hyunsu watched his colleagues fighting, and then a flashback revealed how his parents had been killed by monsters. Determined, Hyunsu decided to kill the creature. A voice informed him that he had exceeded his limits with the help of a strong existence. Then, a skill window appeared, notifying him that his unique ability, listening to instructions, had been awakened. Hyunsu wondered in dismay why he had awakened with what he felt was a useless ability on a battlefield strewn with bloody corpses. After surveying the carnage, the leader announced that they should retreat because the area was too dangerous, and everyone went to help the injured. Later, Hyunsu remarked that it was the first time he'd been in such a dangerous situation, and that he might have died if not for the heavenly demon. The leader then said he wanted to speak with Hyunsu, and together they left the portal to return to the real world. Once back, the raid leaders gave a speech. They explained that those who had fallen in battle would be greatly rewarded by the association, and called for a minute of silence for their fallen comrades. They also announced that Hyunsu had awakened, and the crowd clapped and congratulated him. Shortly afterward, Hyunsu was seen taping the box from which he had received his equipment when one of the raid leaders approached him and asked about his ability. For a moment, Hyunsu wondered if he should reveal it, knowing that doing so might make him the subject of ridicule by the raid. At that moment, the heavenly demon asked him if he was merely complaining about having to follow instructions, and Hyunsu told him to shut up. Unaware of the heavenly demon's presence, since the raid leader could neither see nor hear him, the raid leader mistakenly believed Hyunsu was addressing him. He then decided to test Hyunsu's ability by preparing to attack. At that moment, a skill window appeared, announcing that listening to instructions had been activated.
The heavenly demon, standing behind Hyunsu like a stand user, instructed him to take one step back. Hyunsu dodged the attack with ease. The window appeared again, stating that Hyunsu had successfully listened to instructions and that his attack power would be increased by 15% for one strike. When the raid leader launched another punch, the heavenly demon told Hyunsu to use left crouching tiger, right rushing crush. Soon after, another skill window confirmed that the skills had been imprinted. Hyunsu commented that time had stopped and that the techniques were entering his mind. In the following panels, Hyunsu was shown using left crouching tiger to grab his opponent's shoulder, followed by right rushing crush. He then delivered a devastating punch that left a hole in the raid leader's armor, sending him flying 3 times before he finally collapsed on the ground. Everyone gathered around the fallen B-rank fighter. One person commented that he had taken down a B-rank opponent with a single punch, while another noted that he had only just awakened. Hyunsu could hardly believe he had defeated a B-rank hunter. Then a raid leader approached him and warned that violence against a colleague was prohibited and might lead to punishment, but he would let it slide since it was Hyunsu's first offense. The mood lightened as everyone celebrated the defeat of the bully B-rank fighter. One of the more popular B-rank fighters congratulated Hyunsu and expressed hope that they could get along in the future. Finally, Hyunsu got down on his knees and asked if he could become the mentor's disciple and learn martial arts from him.